All right, so at the top of the show, we teased an article that we both came across, and the headline reads, LGBTQ American savings are simply smaller due to discrimination. So it was an interesting look at where many LGBTQ Americans are in the stream of things, depending on their age and when they might have started to save. But the article also looked at some systemic barriers that might have prevented some in the community from actually putting together an adequate retirement plan. I think this is a trigger for a broader conversation, like we started at the top of the hour, though, which is this idea of saving for this elusive thing down the road. And in many cases with the LGBTQ community, many people are single. And if they have been together, they may not commingle their finances. And marriage was only an option up the last 4 or 5 years. And that was one of the huge things about that decision, was the ability to shield and to protect assets the way a married couple does legally, from the tax perspective. So I think there's been a lot of impediments to an LGBTQ American gaining the same type of retirement comfort level or amount in the bank that non-LGBTQ people can do. Do you agree with that kind of assessment?
Yeah, I do. The one issue I had about this is that the story seemed to wander in a couple places, but they talked about discrimination. They talked about how people may be treated differently or earnings may have been handled differently, particularly with an older LGBTQ population that didn't necessarily either get a chance to age or didn't age publicly. But what I thought was the takeaway for me, and I don't know, we talked about statistics, so I don't know if you pulled this out of here or not, but it says 3 in 10 LGBTQ Americans say saving for retirement was a top financial concern. So that shocked me. Were you shocked by that?
That 3 in 10.
Because it's only 30%. So I put in the parentheses here, not very concerned. So 70% are not concerned about saving for retirement. I thought that was kind of shocking. And I thought maybe people are just going to think they can live off of Social Security or other sorts of savings or something. I don't know.
Do you think?
I thought that number was somewhat low.
Do you think that?
I don't know how they're compared.
Well, I was going to say, do you think that the 3 in 10 tracks to the general population? In terms of how people feel about saving and about what this all means for the future?
Well, I think had you been the journalist, you might have asked that question and added that in the article. But that's what I thought was the missing piece here. It's like, okay, is this typical then? Is that 30% of the U.S. population concerns themselves with retirement, or is it really only 5% of the U.S. population concerns themselves? And so for the LGBT community, 30% is a great number. To me, just reading it, I thought it's not a very great number, but maybe comparatively it's either on par or it's low or high. I didn't know. That was my big question about this article.
Well, the article, I think, could have done better service by answering that kind of statistic or holding up our community next to the general population to say, here are some of the disparities and here's why they may exist. But I agree with you. I mean, and in fact, before we came on the air today, we were both talking about this article and how it was a little light on detail, because there are real fundamental issues that face LGBTQ Americans in terms of housing discrimination and certainly job discrimination. And up until a few weeks ago, until it took the Supreme Court to finally say, Title VII applies to sexual orientation, you could be fired. You could still be fired in a number of states for being LGBTQ. So that's a lot of workers' primary safety net is a 401k match, or in the past it was pension plans. So this is, so the two things we want to know: does the 3 in 10 follow through to the general population? And let's say the general population's 4 in 10, or it's pretty close. That's an astoundingly small amount of people who are giving actual thought to their 65 to 80 something, right?
Right. Well, when we had Jeff Yeager on, the world's biggest cheapskate, he had talked about financial planning and how he and his wife had visited with a financial planner, and they said, "Oh, you're going to need X amount in retirement. And he's like, no, we won't because of the way they live. And I think the issue here is either people feel that they're going to just be okay based upon Social Security or other savings or maybe real estate or something else or inheritance. The big piece that you and I struggle with in all of this and that my friends talk about because we live it every month is
Yeah,
healthcare.
the premium.
We have no idea what healthcare is going to cost us,
Yep.
right? I mean, that bankrupts a lot of people.
A typical couple here in the Northeast who wants to use, let's say, Oscars, the company, or Aetna, choose the company. You know, the bronze, silver, gold. We've talked about this before.
Right.
A silver plan for a married couple in fairly good health around their, mid 50s could be 14 to 1600 a month with a $6,000 deductible per individual. That's a lot of money.
Right. Well, look how I got socked when I had my
Oh
back
my
surgery.
God, I remember that.
I pay these, premiums of 600 plus a month we pay. Um, I had to put down a deductible, this, and this. And so it was not a cheap
No.
operation for me. And fortunately, I could afford it. And I needed it for my health. But then I got socked with a $6,800 bill because I had to end up staying over the night in the hospital,
Unplanned.
which was not my choice and
Yeah.
unplanned. And I got socked because I didn't get pre-approval for it. I was under anesthesia. We didn't even get pre-approval for it. Had I known that, I had a Richard drag me out in the hospital bed and take me home and wake up at home.
Get a gurney.
Save the
Get a gurney.
$6,800. I still get angry about that. It aggravates me. And I can see why people get so upset about healthcare, but I think healthcare plays a huge part into what's going to happen with us in the future. Anybody in retirement, and if we don't get our healthcare figured
It
out.
certainly plays a huge role in people choosing career and job and relocation because this
Yep.
theory that the company is going to pay for anything. Now, given the event that we're experiencing with the high levels of unemployment, I think I read from the Department of Labor recently that given the number of people that have been furloughed, and in furlough's case, you still hold your benefits, but laid off in general, there will
Right.
be more people not on a company's plan in the coming months than there were beforehand. And that's a flip that's bound to cause a lot of trouble. And when you are looking at your family finances and everybody's feeling healthy, like, do you want to forego it for a month or two? It literally is, at least the way we're told, it's literally rolling the dice to say, I'm not going to do
Yep.
healthcare, right?
No, very much. The one positive in this article, though, I thought, and in our former iteration of the show, we used to have a segment with Wells Fargo with the specialists who specialized in financial advising for the gay and lesbian community. But they said that there's so many more financial advisors now who can actually accommodate and have the conversation with same-sex couples about retirement and what that looks like and what it could look like. And people are a lot more savvy now to have those conversations with the LGBTQ retirees or people that plan to retire and set up retirement funds. Have you ever talked to an advisor that specialized, or do you just your advisor knows enough? I guess in New York, savvy enough.
You totally hit the nail on the head. Someone said to me one day, why New York? Well, if you go back to when we graduated college, and if you knew you were gay and you wanted to live, at least not always looking over your shoulder. And by the way, New York in the 80s and 90s, or the late 80s, early 90s, there was still the danger of coming out or losing your job because of it, but it was a far more accommodating place. And I never hesitated when we met with our first financial, or actually the guy we're still using, to basically say, here's the deal. And he never even blinked. He's like, okay, you have special needs because you can't get married. We're going to set things up this way. You got to do this, this, and this to protect each of yourselves in case something happens. So there was a higher level of sophistication in dealing with LGBTQ couples.
Right.
I can't imagine if you're in some other part of the country that might not have been the same. But nowadays, I think there's a lot more sensitivity and a lot more training that banks do for that, right?
Yeah, very much so. And just even if you were just a couple that wasn't married, but you wanted to plan and you were going to retire together, as you know, there's a whole different level of conversation that needs to take place and protections, because even before you and Bob got married, you had to legally have a number of things drawn up so that you were both protected, right?
Yep. Yep. which all went
which
out the
is
door
which
when
is
you're married because it's just under the thing of marriage, right? Even something as simple as calling a bank to saying, I have to close an account. Well, what's your relationship to the person? I'm their partner. It has to be there has to be a legal document saying that you are capable of closing an account or something. That's just one of those little things you have to do, right?
right. Did and fortunately again you were smart enough to do that. But do you think so? Just as a without getting into any numbers or whatever, is that a concern? Do you think you have enough, or you'll be prepared for when you retire, or if you ever retire? They say sometimes entrepreneurs never retire.
I I'm hoping we'll have enough, but you already hit it on the head earlier when you said healthcare. That's even my advisor says they're no longer even trying to project what those costs are. It's a big
Right.
moving target, and as the population ages, there's going to be more healthcare necessities. Yeah, so I'm hoping that we have enough. I'm pretty sure we do when I compare the numbers to the rest of America. Yeah, you've done that. You've looked at the average retirement savings for most Americans is like $64,000 or 36. It's something that just like, whoa, how long do you think that's going to last?
Yeah, but and some people do make it last. So if you're careful with it and you know what you're doing, but um, y- so but it's something good to think about,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody
Yep.
should always think about saving, as we said earlier on, even if it's a few bucks a month or a few bucks a year. Put it toward retirement. It's going to be helpful.